we're going to move on now to the first sort of main bit of today, and I'm going to invite up Steve Moseley and David Lewis to do the first session with you. I asked them. So Steve is my boss, so I'm particularly enjoying telling him what to do now. He's our Executive Director of Governance and Transformation, and David is our Executive Director for Property Services, and they're going to talk you through some of our sort of really important performance data. And I'm driving the slides, so when you want me to move on, just tell me what to do.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Great to be here today. So what I'm going to talk through are the tenant satisfaction measures, myself and David. Now, these are part of something that forms under consumer regulation that has come in, and they're just one element of it. We've seen some of the biggest changes in consumer regulation that we've had probably for the last 15 to 20 years, really significant. And you're going to see lots more that is going to come following that in terms of transparency, the way that we're regulated, the way that we're held to account on service. So this is just one bit of it. They came into force from the 1st of April. We will be publicly reporting them, but we are sharing them with you today as the first group of residents. We'll be going through those in detail. So I've got a few slides where I'm going to go through the sort of technical terms and conditions bits about how we collected that data, what it means, and then we'll be sharing the results with you. I'll start with an overall satisfaction score, and then David will be talking about repairs. Okay? So just to give you some sort of context around what they do three things, or the government has brought them in to do three things. So the first of those is about showing progress. So that is real transparency on our performance metrics and how we're doing. And one of the significant things about the TSMs is that every organisation, every housing organisation is doing exactly the same thing at the moment. So you will be able to compare us transparently to others. So that's the first thing. The second is around accountability, and lots of faces that I recognise in the room from our sort of formal governance structures, other people that are involved, like Fiona has said, through L&Q and you give our feedback in that way. And these are to hold us to account. This is your way of sort of holding us to account of how we are doing. And the third is regulatory insight. So we are regulated, and our regulator will be using these along with lots of other information that already has on us to kind of triangulate how we're doing and hold us to account for our performance. So that's the purpose. That's why they're there. And so what do they show? So they're kind of broad. If you look on the left side here, they're in 5 areas. So the first one is around quality of home maintenance. So this is about ensuring your homes are well maintained and repairs are carried out promptly. There's also a group around that are focused on safety. So that's how we are prioritising safety through standards and regular inspections. A section on resident engagement. So that's how, like events like today, we are listening and hearing your views, but also about the way in which you think we are then feeding, and we can show that we're feeding those into service. Complaints, of course, as you'd expect, is a massive part of it, and so that's how we kind of deal with complaints, how we manage that, how we use that to improve our service. And neighbourhood management, so how well are we taking well of communal environments, the area in which you live. There's also an overall satisfaction score, so that's a question taking all of those things into account, how you feel L&Q are doing. And there are 22 TSMs in total, so these are prescribed by government. They are not ones that we have come up. This is what every provider will be responding to. And they, again, are 2 different types. So 10 of them are kind of broadly things we do. So we have to report on how we are doing things that we measure. So that one might be around complaints or health and safety metrics. And the other 12 are things that you've told us. So this is your perception of how well you think we're doing in those areas. And what we're going to be talking through is an example of both of those. So the regulator also asks us to report them in a particular way. And so we've commissioned an independent survey company to do this. We have not collected them ourselves, so we've commissioned a survey company to do that. There are no rules on how we collect it, but we have used a mix of surveys, telephone interviews online. The regulator asked us to break it down basically into two groups. So those that are renting those homes, their homes that respond to the survey, and home ownership, things like shared ownership. So whenever we give the scores, it will be basically in those two buckets. Overall, we conducted this is backward looking, we conducted this exercise in 4 stages last year. So the survey company went out 4 times on 4 separate occasions last year. Overall, they spoke to 4,000 residents. So that was the sample of residents randomly selected that fed in and gave their views to the survey. And the breakdown of that was around 70% were over the telephone. We had a proportion sort of postal and about 20% online. As I've said, there are 22 measures, and there was one that is an overall survey. So I'm going to start with that before I pass over to David. So there is one question that was asked, which was, taking everything into account, how satisfied or dissatisfied are you with the service provided by L&Q? And based on that methodology we went through, for those that are renting, had 53% that it was positive. There was a group that were kind of neutral, neither positive nor negative, about 13%. So if you take that into account, that means a third of the residents that were surveyed for all of those routes were dissatisfied with the way that L&Q was providing services. As I said, we also have to separate it out for home ownership, and the figure for satisfaction there was 31%. There was a group, 20%, again, with neither positive nor negative. So if you take that together, just over half positive, just under half neutral. So clearly, this is our first set. This is our first set for L&Q. This is the first set for the sector. There are some areas for improvement there. We're going to talk through them, and this session is all about your honesty and candour, as Fiona said, about getting your feedback around those particular areas, and we're going to go down the 22 measures individually. The reason David's up with me here is certainly communication was a very strong theme that came out of those. Also listening and acting on the feedback that you give us. And repairs, understandably, sort of repairs, condition of home was a really kind of strong driver of that. So I think at that point, that's over to you, David, to go through yours.
Thanks, Steve. I will speak loudly and make sure I rotate so that you can both hear and see me really clearly. So there are a couple of slides I'll go through just to talk to you about the condition of home and keeping properties in good repair. Because what I would say is, for sure, and you'll see this through the indicators, the repair service is inconsistent. And I know many residents in the room would have experienced that. And as Fiona was saying at the beginning, this is about warts and all. We want to be honest and open with you and acknowledge the things that we need to do to improve the service. And we are doing those things, but it will take some time. I do just want to spend just a little bit of time talking about the indicators that you see before you. And the first one is about decent homes, the government's decent home standard. And it's quite a low standard, and it sets out the kind of basic conditions that the government expects to be achieved to call a home decent. And it sets out things like reasonable state of repair, modern facilities, no serious hazards in the home. It includes all of those. And you can see from the first indicator, it says that 1.88% of homes were non-decent, according to the government's decent home standards. So over 98% of homes were decent. However, and this is the bit about warts and all, over the next 3 years, we expect the number of decent homes, non-decent homes to increase to almost 50%. So by 27, 28, without investment, and that's the important word, without investment, half of the stock, so over 30,000 homes will become non-decent. So clearly what I'm saying is our stock is deteriorating, and that is why we've got a major works investment program to make sure we invest before the properties become non-decent. But we do have a deteriorating stock, and that's why we've taken the decisions to invest, and that's why we've got this major works investment program that I'll talk to you a bit more about. The next two indicators are around turnaround time, how quickly we do things. And what you can see, emergencies we get to really quickly. So if there's an uncontainable leak, if a window that's is broken that will allow access to the property, we turn up within 24 hours, we make safe and then fix it. Really, really strong. And I hope that's your experience. When you've got an emergency, we turn up within 24 hours, we make it safe, and then there's a follow-on really quickly. In terms of timescale to complete everything else, you can see 7 out of 10 repairs are dealt with within a month, effectively. And stuff that we don't get to so quickly are those larger repairs, particularly things like roofing, those bigger jobs, drainage jobs, where we need to replace windows, the things that typically take longer than a month. But 7 out of 10 repairs we get to really quickly, but you've got those 3 out of 10 that do take time, and often that's the area that causes complaint and dissatisfaction from what you tell us. In terms of looking at the TSM feedback, you can see satisfaction is at 61%. So it's what we would consider low. If we were to compare that to surveys that we do each month for somebody who's just experienced a repair, that runs about 75 to 77%. But here you're saying, actually, level of satisfaction is 61%. So clearly, we need to do better in that area. Satisfaction with time taken to complete the repair, you can see it's 56%. So again, what we know is for those repairs that we can do quickly, plumbing, electrical and carpentry, straightforward jobs, we do them quickly, but those larger works do take longer. And often it's those larger works that are subcontracted, and then the subcontractors take even longer, and they are more expensive. And I'll talk about what we're planning to do about that. So satisfaction with time taken, you feel you wait too long. And we do see that in our complaints. And this point that Steve was saying about communication, we're not being really clear about when the repair will take place and how quickly it will be done. And that is a challenge. And then the final point here is satisfaction with the home and the way it's maintained. So clearly what I'm saying is, as I said at the beginning, what we're seeing is a deteriorating stock that we know we need to invest in. We do plan to invest in, but you're telling us the state of the condition of your home is a challenge. The condition of your home you're dissatisfied with. That's why we're seeing 58% that are currently satisfied with the condition of home. And clearly that's more work we need to do. Next slide, please. Now, I'm not going to go through each of these examples, but this is typical of the feedback that we had from the survey. So you can see some of the positives and some of the negatives. I'll just pick one out from each. You can see them. So the first one on the positive, they do their best to make customers happy. They come out and make things right. And that's true. We do a lot of the time. But you can see the negative there. They leave unfinished jobs, and every time I call, it's just the same. So maybe you see some of that. So what are we doing to address this? The first is, as I was saying, the Major Works Investment Programme. This is £3 billion of investment over the next 15 years. We're now in year 2. We have renewed thousands of components in homes, lots of kitchens and bathrooms. You can see some of the numbers there, 8,000 improvements, kitchens, bathrooms, windows and roofs. Our partners be out there renewing that, and we expect a similar number this year. So massive investment in improving our stock to make sure at 50% of non-decent homes are expected over the next 3 years, we get to them before they become non-decent. That's really important, because what that will do is begin to slow repairs demand. So we're renewing and taking away the need to repair. That's really important. I would just say that the Major Works Partnership isn't just about bricks and mortar, it's also about, they've invested about £23 million in the local communities Investing in the local supply chain have created jobs, apprenticeships, so all of the positive things that come from the long-term partnership. So what are we doing on the repairs side? So we've got a repairs change project. And actually, there's a long list of things that we are doing that will improve the service. But actually, I'm not going to go through them in detail, because actually what you're really interested in is what it's going to mean for you as the user of the service. So what we're doing is doing more work, moving to a position where we do more work by our in-house operative team, because we know the in-house team, who do about 6 or 7 out of 10 of the repairs, actually do a good job on the whole. We know most of the work that the in-house team do are plumbing, electrical and carpentry. It's about 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10 of repairs. That works well. We need to do more in-house for the in-house team, and we're putting that in place now. What we're also doing is simplifying roles and responsibilities, because what we've seen over time is some inefficiency, some duplication and lack of clarity have fed into the way we do things. So we're making that more simple. We're doing is things like introducing a diagnostic tool at the front end. When you report a repair, it's much easier for the person you report the repair to diagnose it, an online tool, so that it's really clear what you're saying. They can make sure the right order is raised, and that we turn up first time, we get it right, we make sure we leave the repair complete, and that you're happy. We intend to reduce the number of contractors we use. So at the minute we use about 600 contractors. About 500 of them are through the Plentific platform, which is a bit like Checkatrade, a kind of sophisticated example of Checkatrade. But about 500 contractors through that, about 100 contractors we directly contract with. The problem with that, it becomes really difficult to control who's going to turn up, the quality of what they do, and making sure they work to the L&Q way of our expectations, and of course your expectations. So we're reducing the number of contractors probably to 20 or 30 or so that they can really focus on turning up first time, making sure it's done to a really high standard. And that's our absolute focus. So we're optimistic about what you will see and the changes that we're making. The way through this is the investment through our major works program, renewing rather than repairing, but also just making sure the repairs we do through the repair service are easy, straightforward. We do it when we say we're going to do it. We make sure that satisfaction levels are exceptionally high. Hand it back to Steve.
Okay, and so I'm going to cover a couple of slides here on building safety. That's one thing that corporately I'm responsible for. So just talk through the headlines of the numbers. And again, I said we've got ones around data that we collect and perception that came through the survey. Most of the, so where we're legally responsible for safety checks, you'll see most of them are 98 to 90%. And actually, we always strive for 100%. You'd always strive for 100%. I'll go through some of the reasons why it's not quite there, but actually shows really high levels of compliance. We're also reporting a figure that includes where we have managing agents that manage homes, so they might be legally responsible for the health and safety checks. And for the purpose of the survey, we're still getting information back from them. So about a quarter of them have responded to us, and we will get information from all of them, but that's the reason why there's a difference in the two figures. So we've got really high compliance in terms of the ones that we're reporting. In terms of satisfaction, for those that rent homes, it's satisfaction that your home is safe, 66%, and for homeowners, 54%. So there's clearly a difference in that, which you might want to sort of go through on your tables and understand. So again, I'll sort of put through some of the verbatim feedback that we've got from this. Taking the positive, I've never had any problems. We get a gas safety check every year. My property is safe, secure and maintained. On the negative side, there's no consultation with residents on things that go ahead. L&Q should make residents feel that they're actually listened to and improve the line of communication. And actually a lot of the negative comments on there were around communication again, rather than the actual repair. There's also something on there about building safety. So I've included that. We've got one of the UK's largest building safety inspection programs. We are on track with that. So we've said in the next 2 years we'll have inspected every single building. We've inspected about 70% so far. There's over 700 buildings that, following those inspections, we've confirmed don't need any remediation, and so that they are safe. But that is an ongoing program. In terms of, I said, where we always aspire to 100% in the other compliance checks, and why we might not get there. Access is one of those issues that means that often we're not 100%. But I think, again, using the brilliant feedback that we've had already, we're looking at ways that we can have an impact upon that, and things that we might be doing that make access more difficult. So for example, making sure that we've got suited locks, so in communal areas, we can get into those communal areas and undertake all the checks that we need to do without disturbing you, and to get them done. To make sure that we have out of hours, our contractors provide a selection of out of hours appointments so that we can undertake the checks that are convenient, again, to you. And that might be one reason why it's really difficult to organise repairs. So overall, a sort of really positive picture on the compliance, but a difference in terms of the way that people who responded to the survey said that they felt. And I think we've avoided the bell, but I think we avoided the bell. That's great. That is the last bit of it. So thank you very much.